how do we make sure that our spouses have both a community but also a job or an obligation to go to and do? That's the question that we need to continue to resolve for, because it's like, it's not easy and it's very isolating, which then creates problems, right? It creates post-military transition problems. It creates, hey, like, I'm making
resentment
problems.
Right.
Like, thank you for saying the thing that I was circling around.
Welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brother and sister veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
Today, we're having an honest conversation about something that impacts every service member, the actual cost of military service on our families. New data shows that military divorce rates and family instability are rising, especially during the transition out of service. We're talking about the emotional strain, the financial fallout, and what every veteran can do to protect their home front. So let's get after it. Dan, the most important decision in someone's life is who they have as a teammate. Would you agree with that?
Especially 100%, totally. Yeah, I actually was thinking about this recently. Like the when you say teammate, you're talking about your most my most important teammate is my wife, the partner that's going to raise my kids together, and as we think about our military service members, and I think about like the people that I've had the privilege of serving with, and I know you've had the privilege of serving with, like the number one strain or constraint is in the capacity to continue to serve is whether you have spousal support. Like that is in everybody that I know that's either decided to leave or like even decided about like, hey, like I don't know if I can do another move, like, or we've got 3 kids, I'm not sure that we're ready to do this. So like my wife and I, we've been together for a while. We were together we were dating when I was away. And that was even difficult when we were just dating, let alone like, cause I was like 5 months away and then you don't have your phone for a couple of weeks. And she's like, where'd you go? I'm like, I was in the woods. And so it's like, it's really hard. And then you come home, no matter where you've served at, you come home and you're a little bit different. Even if it's like just a normal training thing, you come home, it's like, there's a decompression period afterwards. And there's a certain journey that you've got to go on. So I think like, I took a very small question and made a very big question, but like the ability for people to continue to serve has so much to do with whether or not your spouse supports you. How do your kids feel about this? And how are you going to be able to continue to serve as your kids get older? And I think that's really, really what the burden of service looks like on a lot of these families. Like, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the real cost of service. I mean, 51.7% of military families end up in divorce. I'm one of them. You know, I was married, 2 deployments. I had a great marriage for over a decade and change, and you know, we had 2 kids. And you know, part of it, you know, I felt like a failure. You know, I'm a devout Catholic, and there's somewhat of a shame type of thing because there was no drama, right? And people just assumed there was going to be drama. There wasn't, but. I know for me, that transition period of, okay, when I wasn't going to be married anymore, what can I do to focus on my kids? I think actually I'm a better parent because I have my kids, you know, 50-50 custody. When I have them, and I'm focused on them and us and helping them grow.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
You got 2 really great kids.
Yeah, and you got 3 great kids.
They're really sweet kids.
Yeah, I'm the godfather of one of them.
So you sit there and you're like, and you talk about a little bit like the transition that you have to go through of being like, married, and then your ex-wife is great, like, and then you have to transition to this, and you're like, how do I make that transition? You're very successful. Like, I wonder, I'm really struggling with, and I'd love your perspective on this. Like, how do you do that when you're 25 or 28 years old and you're on well, maybe not so much on the multiple deployments now, but you're on training exercise in Europe for 6 weeks. You got 4 weeks. You got 3 kids under the age of 8, and your wife's like, you know what? This sucks. Like, this Army ain't for me, or this Navy's not for me, or I wonder your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that, you know, as a leader, you know, as a senior leader in the Army, I was very clear that our military families are the backbone of our military, right? And, you know, if the spouse, you know, if unhappy, you know, spouse is not good, right? And, you know, happy wife, happy life, you know, and so I would say that, you know, the strain, recognizing it, and what you could do systemically to ease that. So listen, moving every 3 or 4 years, that is stressful.
Totally.
Deployments, stressful.
Totally.
Right? And the fact that, hey, the Joneses across the street, they're getting divorced. It's not so bad. They're happy, right? That for me, that's why I think for me, religion and going to church each week, it was always helpful in good times and bad times. And I had that always as a fallback as basically my backbone of who I was and, how I was able to basically have that as a life force in a sense.
Yeah. I've gotten through our relationship and some of the other things we've done, I've gotten to see very senior military leaders. We were at General Miller's retirement party, retirement. We've been at a lot of different functions, and I just look at the wife and I'm like, you are a gosh darn hero. I don't know exactly what happened, and I know that everybody's celebrating the general officer. I saw General Richardson was on a podcast the other day, but you're a gosh darn hero for being able to support that sort of life, that sort of tempo that we lived for the past 25 years. And I wonder if we're talking about that obligation much. You mentioned, we're going to mention about this, if we're reducing the hours of childcare and daycare hours on post, is that really honoring the commitment of the spouse? That's a question.
Yeah,
that's an issue. That's a problem.
And I think for listeners out there that are obviously currently serving, they see it, but basically, and a lot of posts across, CONUS and OCONUS, they went from basically 12 hours to 10 hours. What does that mean? So, when it was, in the past, it was, 6 to 6, that's 12 hours. Okay. Now 7 to 5, but people, don't realize that if you make childcare in the CDC, the child development centers, 7 to 5. Okay. If you can't drop your kid off till 7, that means you're missing PT at 6:30. That means you're assuming, your spouse is going to, and what happens if she works night work? It is a burden, and it's not like this minor clerical thing. It's really hurting military families out there.
Yeah, but what people don't, I think, on this, and I didn't really appreciate this, but I think we appreciate this. First formation for PT is at 6 or 6:30, right? And then you go to 7:30, and then you take a shower, you have breakfast, and you report at 9. Then you do 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 if you're lucky, right?
Yep.
That's a 12-hour day right there. And if your spouse has to be in a hospital and they work the 3/12s, which is what my wife did, right? Or the overnight shift, which is what my wife did too. Where in there do you find the person that's going to pick up your kid from daycare?
Right.
Where, especially if you're moving every 3 or 4 years, and that, where do you find that? And then
because the grandparents aren't able to pretty much.
Yeah, the grandparents aren't going to fly.
Right.
Hey, mom, I just moved to Seattle. Okay, well, cool. I live out in Pennsylvania. I am not going to do that. So it's how do you do that? And then all of a sudden that strain of that turns into financial strain, which then turns into emotional strain, which means that you're co-parenting, but you're really literally team, you're an employee of the household. And that becomes an issue, or very much an issue, and very isolating.
Yeah. We talk about the financial strain. One of our first guests on Warrior Money was Liz O'Brien.
Yeah.
She's the top person one of the top people at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Your Heroes Foundation. She talks about 24% of military spouses are unemployed. They're not just stay-at-home moms or dads. They are looking for work actively, and they can't get it. 24% unemployment when most American families are dual-income families.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think about this of course I'm biased towards the Army, and you said CONUS, but continental United States, but if you're in rural Virginia, or you're in Tidewater, Virginia, or you're in Fort Irwin, or you're in Fort Polk or Fort Blair, there's just not a lot of employers, right? There's just not a lot of work to be had around there. That's part of the reason why we put Army installations and Navy base there. It makes sense because it's cheap land, cheap access, and is what it is, right? But then how do we make sure that our spouses have both a community but also a job or an obligation to go to and do? That's the question that we need to continue to resolve for, because it's not easy. And it's very isolating, which then creates problems, right? It creates post-military transition problems. It creates, hey, I'm making
resentment
problems.
Right.
Thank you for saying the thing that I was circling around. Hey, dude, I can't deal with this anymore. This is too much work for me. And what has the Army given us lately? What has the Navy given us lately? Besides another 9-month mobilization, what are we doing here? So it's an issue.
Yeah, yeah. What's the best way you've seen couples, whether it's your own family or others, get through it?
I think the only way, and again, whatever happens behind the closed doors of a family, I don't know the answer to, because every relationship has its own things, right? I think the only way it works is if you understand that there's going to be challenges. Like if two people are going to like pretend that this isn't going to happen and there's not going to be challenges, and then you're not going to get to like this level of breaking down where you actually have to recommunicate again, I think that's the only way that it works. Because at the end of the core of it is like you've got to be values aligned, mission aligned, and you've also got to communicate. And that's whether it's your employer or it's your family. Like, and the day you stop, my perception is the day you stop deciding that you're going to get to the foundational level is the day your relationship is probably going to be in challenge, right? Like that's just like, hey man, like this, I'm going to go this way, you're going to go this way, and we're either going to decide to live together and do that, or we're going to get divorced. But I think that's the question that we have to come back to.
As our favorite quarterback, Jalen Hurts says, keep the main thing the main thing.
Keep the main thing the main thing.
All right, we're gonna break there. We'll be right back with more Warrior Money and why your partner is the best decision and most important decision you'll ever make. Welcome back. Let's focus on what matters the most. Simple, honest steps every military family can take to build resilience, strengthen relationships, and stay financially secure, no matter what our service throws your way. All right, practical family and finance conversations. To me, we just joked about, keep the main thing is what Jalen Hurts likes to say. The main thing is obviously you and your partner, your family members, that unit. But one of the main reasons why 51.7% of military families don't make it and end up in divorce is a lot because of the financial strain. What helps them keep the main thing the main thing?
Yeah, I'm going to say this just super humbly. I don't know the answer to that question. Like you and I can think about it. We can talk about it. I think it just has to come down to overly communicating with the person in your life. Like you can talk about money as a logical means. You can talk about daycare. You can talk about all this stuff. But like, I think you've got to listen to your spouse and you've got to continue to check in with that person. And you got to be like, hey man, like, is this really what you want out of your life? And if it is, cool. But if you think, hey, if you think this isn't what you want, we have to have a conversation about that. And not that I'm saying that we have to divorce, but like, I'm going to be really specific. The blended retirement system has created a very different dynamic for us to serve within, right? Like if you do 6 years and then you decide that you're going to go do reserve time or National Guard time, there's absolutely no shame in transitioning that. I think when we think about things as binary choices, like I'm going to serve and I can only serve on active duty. Cool. I totally understand that. But the blended retirement system and the way that the structure is now doesn't totally incentivize you to always be in service, right? It incentivizes you to take knees. It incentivizes you to understand, like, here's where I am in my life and here's what I need out of my life. But I think you need to have a conversation with your spouse about that. If your spouse is like, I love everything that you do, and in fact, I love not working, and I love when you're out in the field because you get out of my hair for a couple weeks, like, that's a relationship that could work for this. But if your spouse or your family needs something different than that, look for other options to do so. Like I did some active duty time, I did National Guard time, I did reserve time, and it was really challenging for me to go back to reserve time once my third kid was born. And more specifically, when my 5-year-old started playing baseball on the weekends. Like I'm not giving up that time for really anybody. And I know that's a decision that I had to make, but like I think that's the choice. But if I tell you that I know exactly what everybody needs to do, I think that's wrong, because whatever everybody's needs are different, but it starts with having to communicate, like, here's what I want out of this.
Yeah. And I do think that, planning your work and working your plan, like we talk about a lot, is, all right, we have a family budget. This is what we're doing. This is what we know the income's going to be. We know the expenses. Do we have that emergency fund? Okay,
Sunday night, dinner nights.
Yep. Are you doing date night each week?
Yeah.
And that shift? Are you doing church on Sundays? Are you doing whatever it is?
Good point. Family walks, like those sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And also, your brain health, right? Meaning, the suicide rate is not good. And we've lost over 120,000 troops veterans since 9/11, right? So your brain health is connected to your physical health, right? So are you, staying physically active as a family, kids in sports? Are you like you said, walking with your wife? Are you going to the gym together? Are you doing little things that you both enjoy? But I think sometimes they're the first things that people say, "Oh, put that aside. There's not time, etc." And you have to, stick to the basics sometimes.
My wife and I, we've been through our share of challenges, just like everybody has. And one of the things that one of the things that we leverage is the opportunity to go to use the YMCA. So the YMCA, at least where we live, has a childcare area. So my kids can go there for a couple hours. She can go get her workout in. I can go do sauna. I can do a gentleman's workout. Like, it is what it is. But and it gives us an opportunity to kind of create some help in areas that we wouldn't otherwise help. So I think when we're thinking about our military friends and family, we got to leverage the resources that are available, like your MWRs and your other opportunities to get your family together. Maybe use the hunting and fishing facilities. Maybe use the campground facilities. Maybe use the things that allow you to be part of the community. But the point I'm trying to make is like asking for help and asking for support and getting there early before there's a crisis is always the best solution.
Right.
It's
not a sign of weakness.
It is always the best solution to get in front of the problem. And if you feel, or as you feel, the stress and pressure and tension is mounting, it's probably a little bit too late. It's like when you're working out and you're dehydrated, that's way too late for you to be drinking some water. You got to drink water way before that, right? So I think when we're thinking about it, what are the ways that you can create structures and support and all the things that you need before you need it? And that, I think, is that I believe the military has available to us. Whether we use it or not, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I let people know, you don't wait till you get overweight to start working out, right? You try to stay on top of it as much as you can. But it's the same thing as your mental health. Your brain health is connected to it. But, are you going to a counselor once a quarter or once a month? Are you doing those things before you really need it because you have those fundamental principles in place and that communication, those lines of communication with you and your partner, or even between you and your doctor? One of
the things I admire about you is your ability to you travel more than anybody I've ever met, but you always seem to get a workout in. Wherever you go to, there seems to be a workout that's in your agenda. I don't know how you always fit it in there, but you're in some CrossFit gym someplace, or you're running some park, or I don't know what you're doing, but it's I don't love jet lag, and I get pretty good at it, but you seem to be just out and doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, part of it's I just realized how it is tied. When I was a paratrooper running 5-10 miles every day, that was fine, right? But when I was in Congress, didn't have teammates. Yeah, it wasn't until I got a little soft, but then I said, hey, I did P90X with Paul Ryan, who became the Speaker of the House, right? Yeah. But we would go work out every morning at 6:30, and a couple of members of Congress that way. But for me, when I stray away from that, that's when I see myself getting in trouble, meaning I'm not as disciplined. And I'm late for meetings, and I'm like, hey, to be on top of it, for me at least, I need to do it. And even if it's 15 minutes. I mean, today, I drove 3 hours into New York, so I was at, the Jersey Shore with my family. But I went to the gym before everyone woke up and got a little workout in. I only worked out literally for 16 minutes because I had my watch.
Yeah.
Then I went in the sauna because I love that gentleman's workout too. But then I showered, shaved, and was on the road.
Yeah, I was as you were saying that, I was thinking about my journey. Right, I was in amazing shape when I was in my late 20s. I was on active duty. I was running 5 miles, 7, whatever it was. I was really good shape. And then all of a sudden, life kind of started to catch up a little bit, right? And you have your first, for me at least, I had my first kid, and then I had your second kid, and you're like, oh my gosh, I went from being this to being not this, and then all of a sudden you got to go back and redig and rebuild your whole foundation, and it's man, it happens so quickly, and especially when you're transitioning out of it. So then you have, and then I'm just gonna project for a second, you don't feel the best physically, and that matters a lot to men. I know that it matters to men. It matters more than we talk about. You will start to lose some of your identity as it relates to being in service. And then you got the financial pressures of trying to figure out how to be a grown man in a world that's really not easy. It's kind of a hard world to be in, right? And so your health becomes one of the last things you think about. And then all this other stuff mounts up, and it becomes a really vulnerable place to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, I'm fatter than I want to be. I don't have as much money as I want to be. I don't get to spend as much time with my kids, and my wife and I don't talk very much. And then what do you do there? Like, how do you
especially if they don't feel like they're living a purpose-driven life.
Totally.
Not members of the tribe anymore. And so, that's what I try to tell people, that because that transition piece, when we have just under 200,000 active troops, not just active duty, but active troops go become veterans, hey, you got to find your new tribe. You got to go join the CrossFit box or the whatever, Planet Fitness or yoga or the YMCA.
Yeah.
And that's just one part of it, but also what church you're going to go to, or synagogue, or, your employers, or what does your family want to do, and make sure your teammates, your family members are happy too, and what they want to see in this next chapter.
Yeah, I've started, so to get after my fat problem, my personal fat problem, I started boxing on Mondays and Friday mornings at 6 a.m. And I got myself a trainer, and I'm like, you know what, Mondays and Fridays are perfect for me because I can't have too much fun on the weekends to get ready for 6 a.m. boxing. I can't have too much fun on a Thursday, and it kind of bookends my week, right? And so what I've had to do, and a lot of it had to do with our conversations and a lot of the work we're doing, is like create structures for myself. Like I didn't know that I needed this, but I need a structure. I need to know that I'm working out on Monday and Friday morning at 6 a.m. It's before anything else. I make an hour of time before my kids wake up, and I'm home as they're waking up from day. Like that I think is what we're trying to talk about, whether it's your relationship with your spouse, it's your relationship with yourself, it's your relationship with God, it's your relationship with money. You've got to create a level of structure and a level of rigor so that you actually have something to execute upon.
Yeah. And I think, and I said it earlier, but, for those who do go through a divorce and don't make it, it's not a sense of failure. Sometimes couples are more happy when they're apart, right? Are you going to use that constructive time to be positive? And, if you're blessed with children, are you positive in front of the kids? Don't badmouth your spouse, even if it's warranted. Like, just be a good person. And I think people lose sight of that. And listen, there's struggles, but at the end of the day, especially for military families, there's so many things being thrown at them. It'll get better. And it's always darkest before dawn.
Yeah, and it's you're totally right. I don't have much more to say about that, but it's like when you think you're alone or you think your things are the worst, like you've got friends, like you've got a network, right? Like the part that I just don't totally understand, and I have suffered through this myself, is like the more stressed out you get, the more you put on blinders, and you start to think like, hey, I'm by myself. I'm the only person solving this problem. I'm the only person having this problem. And I know, like, that's just the exact opposite of the truth, right? Like, I could probably text anybody that I've ever served with, any of my buddies, and be like, hey, I'm having a really terrible day. Like, things are really not going well. And I'd be very surprised if they didn't respond to me.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think that's part of the problem, is that we think as men that we have to do everything alone sometimes. And that includes the way we marry. That's the way it includes the way we raise kids, raise money, all those other things, right? Like, it's really not so binary, and I think that's the issue we have to work through.
Yeah, we'll get there. Well, listen, man, it's been a heavy show, but that is it. And we're gonna ask you to do what you can to listen, subscribe, and review Warrior Money on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or find us at Yahoo Finance. I'm Patrick Murphy,
and I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you again next week.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.